They brought the silent girl to court because no one believed she could scream when the blade touched her throat. That was the cruelty of it, not the chains. Not the cold stone beneath her bare feet. Not even the silver execution collar locked around her neck, sharp enough that one wrong breath could draw blood. The cruelty was the hymn. At moonrise, before the entire wolf court, Leora Morn was ordered to sing the old execution hymn, and everyone knew she had not spoken a single word in 9 years. The royal court of Verhold was full before the trial bell finished ringing. Nobles packed the black stone galleries. Temple women stood in white veils along the walls. Wolf-blooded lords leaned forward with hungry eyes, eager to watch a mute servant fail before the throne. Above them, the moon-glass ceiling glowed silver, reflecting every face, every banner, every wolf shadow stretched across the floor. At the center of the court stood the execution stone, black, ancient, wet from past judgments. Leora stood beside it in a gray servant dress, wrists bound in silver prayer chains, dark hair loose around her pale face. Her throat bore the scar they all pretended not to see, a thin crescent cut just above her collarbone, sealed with old moon silver, as if someone had once taken a knife to her voice and called the wound holy. They called her Silent Leora. Not healer, not girl, not innocent. Silent. As though silence were her crime instead of the punishment someone had left inside her body. For 9 years, she had served in the lower infirmary beneath the palace. She cleaned blood from soldiers' teeth. She cooled fevered wolf children with damp cloths. She held dying servants when nobles would not enter sick rooms. She could not sing the first wolf note. She could not call her shadow in moonlight. She could not defend herself when accused. But she listened, and listening had made her dangerous. 3 nights earlier, she had entered the Lower Moon archive to fetch fever leaf for a stable boy dying of black lung. She found the herb cabinet broken open, the walls trembling, and an old scroll lying on the floor beneath a cracked seal. When she touched it, the scar on her throat burned. The scroll did not speak. It remembered. A woman crying behind stone. A wolf choking under black thread. A child's voice cut off before it became song. Then temple guards seized her. By dawn, High Priestess Merrowvale accused Leora of stealing forbidden moon song from the royal archive. By noon, the court declared that stolen song could only be returned by voice. By sunset, they brought her before the Wolf Prince and ordered her to sing. High Priestess Merrow stood beside the execution stone, calm as a blade hidden in silk. Her silver hair was braided beneath a moonbone crown. Her white robes trailed across the floor, untouched by the old blood around her feet. The accused entered the moon archive without rank, voice, or temple right, Merrow announced. Since then, the royal wolf of Prince Kaelan has weakened further. The temple believes she stole a sealed hymn and used it to poison his bond. A murmur moved through the court. Leora's eyes lifted toward the throne. Prince Kaelan sat above them in black armor, one hand gripping the carved arm of the wolf throne. He was not the fragile prince the court whispered about. He looked hard, broad-shouldered and cold, with dark hair falling over a face built for command. His eyes were silver gray, sharp enough to cut through lies if he chose to look at them. But behind him, his royal wolf shadow was dying. Leora saw it instantly. The beast should have been enormous, a silver guardian stretching behind the throne. Instead, it lay half-collapsed at Kaelan's feet, ribs wrapped in black thread, one eye dim, its breathing slow and painful. Each time the prince moved, the thread tightened around the wolf's chest. The court pretended not to see. Leora could not look away. Kaelan's gaze locked onto hers. For one heartbeat, the noise of the court vanished. He knew. He knew she could see the wound. His hand tightened on the throne. Merrow saw the exchange. Her smile thinned. "Your Highness," she said sweetly, "the law is clear. If the girl stole Moonsong, she must return it by singing the execution hymn. If she cannot sing, then her silence proves the theft has corrupted her body beyond mercy." Kaelan's voice was low. "She is mute." A few nobles shifted. Merrow bowed her head. "Then, perhaps the moon will show us whether her muteness is natural or a hiding place." Leora's stomach turned cold. A hiding place. The words touched something buried inside her. A flash of memory broke through. temple stone beneath her knees. Marrow younger, but with the same calm eyes. A silver needle pressing under Leora's chin. A woman screaming from somewhere behind a locked wall. Then nothing. Always nothing after that. Marrow lifted the forbidden scroll. "Sing," she commanded. The court leaned forward. Leora stared at the hymn written in black ink. The letters crawled across the parchment like trapped insects. She could not read temple script well, but her scar burned as if the words already lived inside her. "Sing," Marrow repeated. "Or let the execution stone judge what your silence hides." Temple guards forced Leora down. Her knees struck the black stone. The silver collar at her throat tightened. Someone in the gallery laughed. How will she sing? Bleed the song out? More laughter. Leora closed her eyes. She had survived 9 years by swallowing humiliation. She had learned to let nobles speak over her. She had learned to answer cruelty with lowered lashes. She had learned that anger without voice had nowhere to go except into the bones. But tonight, as the execution collar cut her skin, something in her refused. Not loudly, deeply. A refusal so old it did not need words. Marrow bent close, her voice soft enough that only Leora could hear. "Do not try to remember," the priestess whispered. "The last time you opened your mouth, your mother died under this court." Leora's eyes snapped open. "Mother." The word struck harder than the collar. Kaelan rose from the throne. His dying wolf shadow lifted its head. Marrow turned sharply. "Your Highness, stay back. If she carries corrupted moon song, it may strike your bond." Kaelan descended 1 step anyway. His voice carried through the hall. Who was her mother? Marrow's face did not change, but the execution stone did. A silver crack appeared beneath Leora's knees. The court fell silent. Marrow lifted her hand. "Begin the hymn." The temple choir inhaled. Before they could sing, Kaelan's wolf shadow snarled. The sound was weak, broken, almost dying, but it shook the throne. Every wolf shadow in the court looked toward Leora, not with hatred, with fear. No, with recognition. Marrow shouted, "Seal her mouth." The guards grabbed Leora's jaw. Too late. The scar on her throat split open with silver light. Leora opened her mouth. At first, no sound came out, only moonlight. It poured between her lips like liquid silver, bright enough to blind the front row of nobles. The moon glass ceiling cracked. Every trial candle died. The forbidden scroll tore free from Marrow's hand and unrolled in the air, its black ink burning white. Then Leora sung. The first note shattered the execution stone. The second note broke every silver prayer chain on her wrists. The third note drove every royal wolf shadow in the hall to its knees. Noble wolves lowered their heads. Guard wolves pressed their bellies to the floor. Temple wolves whimpered beneath their veiled mistresses. Even the ancient wolves carved into the pillars cracked open their stone eyes and bowed. Kaelan's dying wolf shadow rose. The black thread around its ribs snapped once. Marrow screamed as if the sound had cut her instead. Leora's voice filled the court, not the execution hymn they had demanded, but something older, deeper, buried beneath it. A song of moonlight locked in a child's throat. A song of stolen bonds. A song that did not beg the court for mercy because it had come to accuse it. Above her, the broken moonglass ceiling turned transparent. The real moon appeared. Huge, white, watching. Its light struck Leora like judgment. Behind her, moonfire shaped itself into a vast silver wolf with a crown of broken stars and a mouth sewn shut with black thread. The court trembled. The forbidden scroll burned 1 sentence across the air. The silent girl did not steal the moon song. She was the song they sealed. Leora stopped singing. The hall remained kneeling. Kaelan stared at her as if the world he had ruled had just split beneath his feet. Then, from under the shattered execution stone, a second voice began to sing back. A woman's voice. Faint. Buried. Alive. Marrow went white. Kaelan turned toward her slowly. "What did you bury under my court?" The execution stone cracked wider. A pale hand reached up from beneath it, and Leora heard the voice beneath the floor whisper her true name. Seren. Seren. The name rose from beneath the shattered execution stone. Leora stopped breathing. Not because the voice was loud, because it knew her. The court remained on its knees, frozen beneath the broken moonglass ceiling. Silver shards hung in the air like stars that had forgotten how to fall. Every wolf shadow still bowed with its belly pressed to the black floor. Even Prince Kaelan's wounded royal wolf stood trembling beside the throne steps. Black thread torn but not gone. High Priestess Marrowvale looked at the pale hand reaching from under the stone and went white. That told Kaelan everything. He drew his sword. Not toward Leora. Toward the floor. "What did you bury under my court?" he asked again. Marrow's mouth opened, but no sound came out. For the first time all night, the priestess had no sermon ready. The pale hand clawed against broken stone. Leora moved before anyone ordered her. She crawled across the cracked floor, chains broken at her wrists, throat burning from the song that should not have existed. A guard reached for her. But Kaelan's wolf shadow snapped at him so violently the man stumbled back. No one touched her. Leora reached the hand and wrapped both of hers around it. Cold skin, weak fingers. "Alive," the woman beneath the stone whispered again. "Seren, my little moon." The name struck Leora like a buried bell. Memory tore open. A woman humming beside a cradle. Warm hands brushing dark hair from a child's forehead. Moonlight spilling through temple bars. A lullaby without words. Only breath and silver rhythm. Then Marrow's face above her. A needle. Blood. A scream behind stone. Leora shook her head, tears burning her eyes. She had lived 9 years as Leora Morn. Silent healer. Servant. Accused thief. But before that, someone had called her Seren. Kaelan stepped beside the broken stone. His voice was deadly calm. "Open it." Marrow snapped back to life. "You cannot. The chamber is temple sealed." Kaelan looked at her. "Then temple law stands accused." He drove his sword into the crack. Silver fire exploded up the blade. The floor split open. Beneath the execution stone lay a narrow moon chamber lined with black thread, silver bones, and old prayer chains. At its center, a woman was bound upright against a pillar of moonstone, her hair white from years underground, her throat scarred with the same crescent mark Leora bore. Leora made a sound. Not a word. A wound. The woman lifted her face. Her eyes were blind from darkness, but they found Leora anyway. "My daughter." The court erupted. Marrow shouted, "Lies!" The moon answered. A silver beam struck both scars at once, Leora's throat and the woman's. The marks burned in the same shape. The same seal. The same wound made by the same hand. Kaelan turned slowly toward Marrow. "You told the court this girl was found mute in the lower infirmary." Marrow's voice shook. "She was dangerous. She was a child. She was born with forbidden moon song." The woman beneath the stone raised her head. "No. She was born with the old witness voice." Marrow's face twisted. "Silence." The word snapped through the chamber like a command. Leora's throat closed. Not from fear. From magic. Her breath cut off. Her hands flew to her neck. The crescent scar burned black. The song inside her collapsed into pain. Kaelan moved. His sword was at Marrow's throat before her next breath. "Release her." Marrow smiled, though her eyes trembled. "Kill me. And the seal remains." Leora dropped to one knee, choking soundlessly. Her mother strained against the chains beneath the floor. "Seren, listen to me." Leora could barely hear. "Your voice was never taken because it was weak," the woman said. "It was sealed because it could name the hand behind stolen bonds." Kaelan's wolf shadow staggered forward, black thread tightening again around its ribs. The moon chamber pulsed. Leora saw it then. Thin black strands stretching from Marrow's moonbone crown into the execution stone. From the stone into Kaelan's wolf. Shadow, from his wolf into dozens of royal bond records carved beneath the floor. This was not only her trial. It was the machine killing him. She forced her fingers into the bleeding scar at her throat. Pain shot through her body. Kaelan saw and stepped toward her. "Do not." Leora looked at him. No voice. No words. Only refusal. She tore the old seal open. Moonlight burst from her throat. The black command snapped. Air flooded her lungs. Marrow screamed. Leora stood slowly. Blood silver against her collarbone. eyes fixed on the priestess. Her voice came rough, broken, and alive. You sealed me because I heard you. The court shuddered. Kaelan went still. Hearing her speak was more impossible than watching the moon shatter the ceiling. Leora turned toward the woman beneath the stone. Mother. Her mother wept once. Then the moon chamber answered. The forbidden scroll unrolled again above the court, burning with new words. Seren Noctvale, daughter of the moon witness line. Voice sealed by temple order. Mother buried alive beneath execution law. Royal mate bonds altered through black thread hymn. Kaelan read the words. His face changed. Not with shock now. With recognition so sharp it looked like pain. Black thread hymn, he said. Marrow backed away from his sword. Your Highness. I did what was necessary to protect the succession. Kaelan's voice dropped. Who holds my mate bond? Marrow said nothing. The black thread around his wolf tightened. His wolf fell to its knees. Leora's mother cried out. The answer is in the hymn. Leora looked at the execution stone. The old hymn they had forced her to sing still hovered in the air. But now she saw the hidden layer beneath it. Not notes. Names. Bonds. Transfers. Stolen vows woven into temple music. Marrow had used execution hymns to cut voices, and mate songs to move bonds. Leora stepped toward Kaelan's wolf shadow. The court recoiled as if she were reaching for a crown. Kaelan did not. He watched her with his sword still at Marrow's throat. His face hard, but his eyes changed when Leora knelt before the dying wolf. May I? She asked. The court heard her speak again and trembled. Kaelan's answer was quiet. Yes. Leora placed her palm before the royal wolf, not touching until the beast lowered its head by choice. The wolf pressed its muzzle to her hand. The black thread flared. A vision exploded above them. Kaelan, younger, standing beneath a moon arch beside a girl he never saw clearly. A silver bond forming between his wolf and a distant voice. Marrow cutting the bond before it completed. A noble woman's hand receiving the stolen thread. A false Luna candidate smiling as the temple rewrote the prophecy. The court saw enough. Kaelan's voice became lethal. Name her. Marrow shook her head. Leora Sanguanote. Just one. The black thread around Kaelan's wolf pulled taut and pointed across the court. Not to Leora. Not yet. To the Queen's balcony, where Lady Evelyn Vale, Kaelan's promised bride, stood in white fur and moon pearls. Her face drained of color. The royal wolf snarled. Lady Evelyn stepped back. Kaelan looked at her. You have my stolen bond. The court erupted. Evelyn lifted her chin, but her hands shook. I was chosen to save you. Leora's mother spoke from below the broken stone. No. You were chosen because a stolen bond makes a prince obedient. Marrow lunged for the fallen scroll. Kaelan struck the moonbone crown from her head. It shattered on the floor. The black threads across the court flickered. Leora's voice rose again, stronger now. Not a full song. A command of witness. The execution stone split wider. Her mother's chains cracked. Kaelan's wolf shadow stood, wounded but no longer bowing. The false bond around Lady Evelyn's wrist appeared in silver-black light, wrapped like a beautiful bracelet made from theft. Leora looked at Kaelan. He looked back. Between them, the broken moon sang. The trial was no longer asking whether the silent girl had stolen temple magic. It was asking how many lives the temple had stolen to keep her silent. The question cut deeper than the execution stone. How many lives had the temple stolen to keep her silent? No one in the wolf court moved. Lady Evelyn Vale stood on the Queen's balcony with the stolen bond glowing around her wrist like a bracelet of moonlight and wrought. A moment earlier, she had looked untouchable. White fur cloak. Pearl. Threaded hair. Noble posture. The future Luna the court had been taught to accept. Now every royal wolf shadow in the hall stared at her with lowered ears and bared teeth. Kaelan's wolf shadow took one step toward her. Evelyn flinched. That tiny movement destroyed more than any confession. Kaelan looked up at her. How long? Evelyn's lips parted. Your Highness, how long have you worn what was not yours? Marrow, stripped of her moonbone crown, tried to rise from the floor. Do not answer. Leora sang one low note. The note was small, but it struck the floor like a hammer. Marrow's mouth sealed shut with silver light. The court gasped. Leora staggered from the force of it. Her voice had returned, but it was not healed. Every sound tore through the old wound in her throat. Blood shone silver at her collarbone. Her mother, still chained beneath the broken execution stone, lifted her head in terror. "Seren," she warned. "Do not spend too much voice." The seal was not fully broken. Leora heard her. But Kaelan's wolf was dying in front of her, and the stolen bond around Evelyn's wrist was pulsing like a leash. Leora turned to Kaelan. "The thread is still feeding on him." Kaelan's gaze snapped to her. It was the first time he heard his own danger from her living voice. Suspicion warred with trust on his face. He had spent years surrounded by priests who spoke in polished lies, nobles who gave him half-truths, and a future bride wearing a bond stolen from a girl buried in silence. Now the only person telling him the truth was the mute servant he had been told to condemn. "What do you need?" he asked. Merrow's eyes widened. So did the court's. A wolf prince asking an accused servant what she needed in the middle of his own trial should have been impossible. Leora looked at the false bond. Her wrist. Evelyn backed away from the balcony rail. "No." Kaelan lifted one hand. The royal guards moved. Evelyn's father, Lord Vale, stepped in front of her. "Your Highness, my daughter was chosen by temple prophecy. You cannot let a servant girl and a buried woman undo a bond witnessed by the Moon Court." Kaelan's voice went cold. "The Moon Court is currently standing on a buried woman." Lord Vale went pale. The guards seized Evelyn and brought her down from the balcony. She did not fight like someone innocent. She fought like someone terrified of what would happen when the bracelet was touched. When she reached the execution stone, Leora saw the truth more clearly. The stolen bond was beautiful. That made it worse. It wrapped Evelyn's wrist in silver-black thread, woven with small moon pearls and royal hair, glowing faintly whenever Kaelan breathed. It had been disguised as bridal blessing, but beneath the shine it was a wound stretched into jewelry. Leora reached toward it. Evelyn hissed, "Do not touch me." Leora stopped, not because Evelyn deserved tenderness, because witness had to be cleaner than the crime. "Do you choose to remove it?" Leora asked. Evelyn laughed, sharp and afraid. "Choose? Did anyone ask me when they put it on?" The answer struck the hall. "Even Kaelan still." Evelyn's eyes filled with furious tears. "I was 12. Merrow told my father the prince's true mate was dangerous. She said if the bond stayed loose, his wolf would follow a voice that could destroy the throne. She said my house could save him. She said I was blessed." Her voice cracked. "Then the thread burned into my skin, and every time he weakened, they told me to pray harder." Merrow's sealed mouth twitched with rage. Leora looked at Evelyn differently now. Not forgiven, but not simple. Another girl turned into a vessel by adults who called use a blessing. Kaelan's jaw tightened. "You knew it was stolen." Evelyn looked at him. "I learned later, and still wore it." Her tears spilled. "And what would you have done if I removed it?" "The court would call me false. My father would cast me out. Merrow would say I betrayed the throne. You never looked at me long enough to ask why your wolf hated my touch." The words landed hard. Kaelan flinched, not visibly to the court, but Leora saw it. A prince could be wounded by truth and still not be innocent. Leora held out her hand again. "Then choose now." Evelyn stared at the bond. For one long moment, everyone waited. Then she gave Leora her wrist. The stolen thread screamed. Kaelan's wolf shadow collapsed. Leora sang. Not the execution hymn, not the old temple song. A single line from somewhere beneath memory. A moon note meant for cutting lies without cutting flesh. The bracelet split open. Silver-black thread uncoiled from Evelyn's skin, dragging blood with it. Evelyn cried out, but she did not pull back. The thread snapped toward Kaelan. Leora stepped between them. Kaelan shouted, "No!" The thread struck Leora's throat. Her scar burst open. For one breath, she lost the world. She saw herself as a child beneath temple stone, screaming without sound while Merrow sealed her voice. She saw her mother dragged below the court. She saw Kaelan younger, his wolf reaching toward a voice he could not hear. She saw Merrow cutting the almost formed mate bond and weaving it into Evelyn's bracelet. Then she saw the truth hidden beneath all of it. The bond had not belonged to Evelyn. It had not even fully belonged to Kaelan. It had been reaching for Leora, for Seren Noctvale, the witness voice, the girl whose song could keep a royal wolf from obeying false law. Leora fell to her knees. Kaelan caught himself before touching her. She saw the restraint through pain. Leora, he said. The name was wrong now, but still gentle. Her mother cried out from below. Her true name. Call her true name. Kaelan's face changed. He turned to Leora, and in front of the court that had condemned her, he spoke carefully. Seren Noctvale. The moonlight struck her like breath. The black thread loosened from her throat. Kaelan knelt before her. Not touching. Not claiming. His dying wolf shadow trembling behind him. May I help you stand? The court heard the question. So did Leora. So did the moon. She nodded. Only then did he offer his hand. When her fingers touched his, the broken mate thread between them blazed silver. Every wolf in the court howled. Not in obedience. In recognition. Marrow's sealed mouth tore open with a scream. Do not let it complete. The execution stone split down to its roots. Beneath it, the buried moon chamber shattered, and Leora's mother fell free from her chains into the arms of the servant witnesses rushing forward. Above the court, the forbidden scroll burned a new line into the air. The prince's bond was not poisoned by the silent girl. It was dying because her voice was buried. Kaelan looked at the words, then at Seren, then at the court. His voice was no longer cold. It was worse. Clear. The trial is over. Marrow tried to crawl backward. Kaelan rose, still holding Seren's hand because she had not let go. High Priestess Marrow Vale is bound under witness, he said. Lady Eveline Vale is held under witness, not harmed. Lord Vale will surrender every contract, temple payment, and bond record tied to this theft. Lord Vale shouted, This is treason against the Moon Temple. Seren's mother lifted her face from the broken chamber. Her voice was weak but sharp enough to cut stone. No. This is the first moon court in 9 years that has heard the truth. The moon glass shards above them began to fall. Not as glass, as light. Each shard touched the floor and became a name. Dozens of names. Children silenced. Bonds moved. Wolves weakened. Witness singers buried beneath law. Seren stared as the names formed around her feet. She was not the only voice sealed. Kaelan saw them too. His hand tightened around hers once, then loosened as if reminding himself not to hold what might want freedom. Seren looked down at their joined hands. The bond between them burned quietly now. Alive. Unfinished. Dangerous. She pulled her hand away. Kaelan Liatir. That mattered. Marrow laughed from the floor, blood on her lips. You think freeing one voice saves you? The Moon Temple has sealed singers in every court from here to the northern packs. Break me, and the whole kingdom loses its hymns. Seren turned toward her. Her throat still bled silver. Her voice hurt. But it existed. Then we start here. The moon above the broken ceiling brightened, and beneath every execution stone in Verhold, sealed voices began to wake. The first answer came from the Western Judgment Hall. A scream of moonlight split the air above the court, not heard by ears but felt inside every wolf shadow. Then another voice rose from the northern pack chapel. Then another from the river court. Then another from some hidden chamber far below the palace, where no trial had been held in years but where the stones still remembered blood. The royal wolf court trembled. Names burned across the floor around Seren's bare feet. Avel, Mera, Thorna, Isola, Kaivan, Nira, Solrith. Dozens, then hundreds. Not dead names, sealed names. High Priestess Marrow looked at them and smiled through the blood on her mouth. You hear them now, do you? Good. Then you understand what I protected you from. Kaelan's sword lowered toward her throat. Choose your next words carefully. Marrow laughed softly. You think those voices are innocent? Witness singers were never harmless. They could break royal bonds with a note, expose false heirs, shatter temple law, turn wolves against kings. Your ancestors buried them because kingdoms cannot survive every hidden truth being sung aloud. Seren's mother, still weak from years beneath the execution stone, gripped the broken edge of the moon chamber and pulled herself upright. Her white hair hung over her scarred throat. No. Kingdoms fear witness because lies cannot inherit when someone remembers the first wound. Marrow's eyes flashed. And how many wars did your line begin by speaking too much? Seren felt the court turn again. Fear was searching for a new shape. Marrow knew how to give it one. Silent girl became thief. Witness became danger. Truth became war. Seren swallowed against the torn pain in her throat. Her voice had returned, but every word still felt like dragging silver through a wound. She wanted to speak. She wanted to sing until every buried chamber broke open. But her mother's warning remained. Do not spend too much voice. Kaelan saw the strain in her face. He turned to the court. No one speaks over her. A noble lord rose from the lower benches. Your Highness, with respect. If every execution stone begins releasing sealed voices tonight, the Pax will panic. The temple may be guilty, but order. Kaelan's wolf shadow snarled. The lord went silent. Kaelan's voice stayed cold. Order built on buried throats is not order. Seren looked at him. He had not been forgiven by truth, but he was listening faster than most kings learn to. Marrow saw that too. Her gaze shifted to Lady Evelyn Vale. Still standing near the broken balcony steps with the stolen bond mark raw around her wrist. Tell him, Marrow said. Tell him what happens if the true bond completes. Evelyn flinched. Kaelan turned toward her. Seren's chest tightened. The bond between her and Kaelan was alive now, faint and dangerous, glowing like a thread of moonfire neither of them had chosen. It pulled when he breathed. It ached when his wolf shadow moved. It frightened her more than Marrow's threats because it felt true before it felt safe. Evelyn looked from Kaelan to Seren. Then she lowered her eyes. The prophecy said the prince's true mate would destroy his throne, she whispered. The court stirred. Marrow's smile returned. Kaelan did not move. Which prophecy? Evelyn's voice shook. The sealed one. The one Marrow showed my father when I was 12. It said if the witness girl sang beside you, your royal wolf would stop obeying the crown. The black thread still clinging to Kaelan's wolf pulsed. Seren heard the lie inside the prophecy. Not fully, but enough. She stepped toward the forbidden scroll hovering above the court. Kaelan moved with her, then stopped himself before he came too close. Seren, he said quietly, do not hurt yourself. She looked back at him. His voice had carried command all night. This was not command. It was fear. For her, that made the bond burn warmer. She turned away before it could weaken her caution. The scroll, she said, her voice rough. Bring it lower. The moonglass shards shifted overhead. The forbidden scroll descended until it floated before her, its burned edges curling with silver flame. Marrow's face tightened. Good. Seren lifted one hand but did not touch it. Read the prophecy aloud. Marrow laughed. You can read it yourself now, can't you? Sing it, little witness. Kaelan's sword pressed closer to Marrow's throat. Seren shook her head. Not her. She looked at Evelyn. Eve ne went parle. Mais? You wore the false bond. You heard the lie. Read it. Evelyn stared at the scroll as if it might bite her. Then, slowly, she stepped forward. The court watched. Her hand trembled as she read the old temple line. If the witness voice stands beside the prince, his wolf shall cease to obey the crown, and the throne of Verhold shall break beneath the moon. Marrow lifted her chin. There. You see? Seren leaned closer to the scroll. The letters flickered. Then she sang one note. Small. Precisi. A cutting note. The black ink peeled back. Beneath the prophecy, older words appeared. If no witness voice stands beside the prince, his wolf shall be chained to the crown until the throne devours him. The court went still. Kaelan's face turned blank with shock. The royal wolf shadow staggered, as if the truth itself had loosened something around its ribs. Seren forced the next line into view. The crown must be obeyed by law, but the wolf must be free to refuse. Her voice broke. She stumbled. Kaelan caught her only after she reached for him. The court saw that too. Not a prince grabbing a servant. A man waiting for permission even while she fell. Seren hated that the kindness cut deeper than the cruelty had. Kaelan steadied her and immediately loosened his hold. She did not move away. Not yet. Marrow screamed. That line is corrupted. Seren's mother answered from the broken chamber. No. That line is why you buried us. The execution stone split again. This time it revealed not another body, but a staircase descending into the old moon archive beneath the court. Cold silver light glowed below. Voices rose from the darkness, faint, layered, calling names that had been cut from history. Kaelan looked down the stair, then at Seren. She knew what he would ask before he did. "Do you choose to go?" he said. The question moved through her like breath. Marrow spat blood onto the stone. If she enters that archive, every royal bond record will open. Every marriage, every alliance, every heir claim tied to Temple Him will stand accused. Your court will collapse. Kaelan looked at the nobles. Fear filled their faces. Then he looked back at Seren. "My court can survive being accused," he said. "If it cannot survive being heard, it deserves to fall." Seren's wolfless years, her stolen voice, her mother under stone, Kaelan's dying wolf, Evelyn's stolen bond, the names burning around her feet, everything led down into that silver dark. She nodded. "I go." Kaelan turned to the guards. "Marrow comes with us." Marrow's smile vanished. "Evelyn too," Seren said. Evelyn looked startled. Seren's voice softened, though it hurt. "You know the false bride records." Evelyn swallowed, then nodded once. Together, they descended beneath the shattered execution stone. The silent girl whose voice had returned. The wolf prince whose bond had been stolen. The false bride who had worn a lie. The priestess who had buried them all. And the mother who had survived beneath the court. Behind them, the royal wolves remained kneeling. Below them, the old moon archive opened its first door. And from inside, hundreds of sealed voices began singing Seren's name. The old moon archive opened its first door. Inside, hundreds of sealed voices sang Seren's name. Not loudly, not kindly, desperately. The sound came from the walls, the floor, the silver shelves, the bones of old books chained beneath moonglass locks. Every voice had been cut from someone living. Every song had been buried because it knew too much. Seren stopped at the threshold. Her throat burned as if the archive were pulling on the wound Marrow had left there 9 years ago. Kaelan saw her hand move toward the scar and stepped closer, then stopped before touching her. "Can you stand?" he asked. Seren nodded. Marrow laughed behind them, chained between 2 guards. "She can stand. The question is whether she can survive hearing what her bloodline did." Seren's mother, Althea Noctvale, lifted her pale face. "Do not twist it. Witness singers did not create murder by naming it." "No," Marrow said. "They created rebellion." Kaelan turned. "Enough." The archive answered him. A silver door slammed shut behind them, sealing the stair to the court above. Marrow's smile vanished. Good. For the first time, she was trapped inside the place she had used to trap others. The archive was enormous. It should not have fit beneath the court. Silver pillars rose into darkness. Moonlit water ran in narrow channels across the black floor. On every wall hung thread-bound scrolls, voice jars, broken wolf collars, and sealed hymn records. At the center stood a round stone table carved with hundreds of names, many scratched out by priestly knives. Seren stepped toward it. The names brightened beneath her feet. Kaelan followed at her side now, not ahead of her, not behind as a show, but close enough that his wounded wolf shadow could keep standing. The bond between them flickered, dangerous and unfinished. Evelyn walked behind them, one hand wrapped around the raw mark on her wrist where the stolen bond had been removed. She looked terrified, but she did not flee. That mattered. Seren looked at the table. "Where are the royal bond records?" Marrow said nothing. The archive answered. A black cabinet opened across the chamber. Inside hung silver threads trapped in glass rings. Kaelan went still. His wolf shadow snarled. Each ring held a bond. Some were dim, some broken. Some moved like living veins. Names were carved beneath them. Princes, lunas, heirs, rival brides, unwanted mates, children hidden from succession. Kaelan's voice dropped. How many were altered? Marrow's silence was answer enough. Seren approached the cabinet and felt the songs inside it reach for her. One thread burned brighter than the others. Kaelan's. It was not whole. The false bond had been cut from Evelyn, but the original thread remained split into 3 parts. One around Kaelan's wolf, one around Seren's voice, and one locked inside a black moon jar at the back of the cabinet. Seren pointed to it. That one, Evelyn whispered. Marrow kept the first sound there. Kaelan looked at her. What first sound? Evelyn's eyes filled. The first note of your true mate bond. She said if the first note stayed sealed, your wolf would keep searching, but never find her. Seren's heart twisted. Kaelan's jaw tightened. Not with desire, with anger. He looked at Marrow. You let my wolf die for years so I would remain obedient. Marrow lifted her chin. A prince guided by a witness singer becomes impossible to rule. Kaelan's voice was cold. Good. The archive trembled. The black moon jar cracked. A note escaped. It was small, almost broken, but the moment it touched the air, Kaelan's wolf shadow lifted its head. Seren felt the sound enter her chest, like something that had always been waiting behind her ribs. The bond flared between them. Too fast. Too bright. Seren stepped back. Kaelan did the same. The note hovered between them, asking to complete what had been stolen. Seren's mother gripped her arm. Do not let the bond choose before you do. Marrow smiled. Too late. Bonds are older than consent. Seren turned on her. No. The single word cracked 3 glass rings in the cabinet. Marrow flinched. Seren's voice hurt, but she held it steady. A stolen bond is not fate. A true bond still has to be chosen. The archive brightened. Witness accepted. Kaelan looked at her. Something raw behind his eyes. Then it waits. The bond note dimmed, but did not vanish. It settled into the table between them. Waiting. Marrow's face hardened. You have no idea what you have delayed. If that bond does not complete, his wolf remains vulnerable. If it does complete, the crown loses command. Either way, enemies will come. Seren looked at the rows of stolen threads. Let them come after we know who they are. She placed her hand above the carved table. Open the altered records. The archive resisted. Then Althea began to sing. Her voice was weak from years under stone, but it carried the shape of an older law. Seren joined her, only a thin harmony, careful not to tear her throat. Together, mother and daughter woke the table. Names ignited. Not just names of victims. Names of accomplices. Priests. Noble houses. Temple singers. Royal advisors. Bride families. Execution judges. Pack lords who had paid to move mate bonds, weaken heirs, silence witness children, or make unwanted mates disappear. Evelyn staggered. Her father's name burned near the top. Lord Vale payment accepted for royal false bond placement. She covered her mouth. Kaelan did not comfort her with lies. You will testify. Evelyn nodded, tears falling. Yes. Marrow lunged suddenly. Not at Seren. At the black moon jar. She tore free from one guard, grabbed a shard of glass from the cabinet, and slashed her palm across the sealed records. Blood hit the table. The archive went dark. Every stolen voice screamed. Marrow shouted, if the records cannot be controlled, they will be buried again. Black thread exploded from the floor, wrapping around the voice jars, the bond rings, the carved names. Seren's throat closed. Kaelan's wolf shadow collapsed. Althea fell to her knees. Marrow smiled through blood. I told you. Truth starts wars. Seren could not speak. The old seal had seized her voice again. But this time, she was not alone. Kaelan drew his sword and drove it through the black thread holding his wolf. Evelyn grabbed the false bond record with both hands and held it to the table, even as it burned her palms. Althea, shaking, sang one broken note from the floor, and Seren, voiceless again, placed her hand over the waiting mate bond note between her and Kaelan. She did not complete it. She used it as witness. Moonlight exploded from the table. The black threads snapped back from every record. Marrow screamed as the archive carved her own name into the stone. Marrow Vale, sealer of witness voices, broker of stolen bonds, keeper of buried singers. The archive door reopened. Above them, in the royal court, every noble saw the same name burn across the shattered moon-glass ceiling. Seren's voice returned in a whisper. Now they know. Kaelan looked at the burning records, then at Marrow in chains again, then at Seren. No, he said. Now they begin answering. The old moon archive opened its second door. Beyond it lay a corridor of sealed throats. And from every locked chamber, voices called for witness. Beyond the second door lay a corridor of sealed throats. The walls were not stone. They were moon glass. Behind the glass, hundreds of silver scars floated in the dark, each one shaped like the crescent mark on Seren's throat. Some were small enough to belong to children. Some were old, ragged, nearly faded. Every scar pulsed with a voice trapped behind it. Seren stopped. Her own scar burned in answer. Kaelan stood beside her with his sword lowered, his royal wolf shadow still weak but upright. Marrow was dragged behind them in chains, no longer smiling. Eveline walked pale and silent, both palms burned from holding the false bond record in place. Althea leaned on a guard, exhausted but determined. A whisper moved through the corridor. Seren, then another. Witness, then hundreds. Help us. Seren's breath caught. Kaelan turned toward Marrow. How many? Marrow's lips pressed together. The corridor answered for her. Names burst across the glass. Children taken from packed chapels. Servant girls accused of false prophecy. Healers who heard dying wolves speak. Brides who sang the wrong name during bonding rites. Boys whose voices changed too early under the moon. Mothers who refused to let the temple cut song from their daughters. Seren touched the nearest glass. A vision flashed. A little girl, no older than 6, held down by temple women, while Marrow placed a silver needle against her throat. The child's mother screamed. A priest wrote, "Voice sealed for dangerous sensitivity to royal death." Seren jerked back. Kaelan caught her only when she reached for him. "Enough," he said to Marrow, voice low with fury. "We open them." Marrow shook her head. "If you open every voice at once, they will break. Some have been sealed too long. Some do not remember their bodies. Some will wake mad." Althea answered quietly. For once, she is not lying. Seren looked at her mother. Althea's face was gray with pain. "Voices are not chains. You cannot rip them out and throw them back. Each one must be named. Each person must choose." Kaelan's jaw tightened. "Then we begin," Marrow laughed bitterly. "With which one? There are hundreds. Outside this archive, the court is waiting. The packs are waking. The false bond houses will burn records before dawn." Seren looked down the endless corridor. For a moment, despair pressed against her ribs. Too many names. Too many wounds. Too much truth for one throat. Then the waiting mate bond note between her and Kaelan pulsed softly from the archive table behind them. Not claiming. Offering strength. Seren did not reach for Kaelan. She reached for the note. Moonlight spread from her hand into the corridor. The glass scars brightened, but did not shatter. Instead, the nearest one opened like a window. A voice came through. Small. Afraid. "My name is Nira." In the court above, someone screamed. The moon-glass ceiling showed a young woman in the lower gallery clutching her throat. She was alive. She had been sitting among the servants all night, never knowing why her voice vanished at 7 years old. Seren spoke carefully. "Nira, do you want your voice returned?" "Lysaya." "Nira." Above, the young woman sobbed and nodded. The glass scar dissolved. A silver thread flew upward through the floor. A moment later, Nira's first scream broke across the court. It was terrible. It was beautiful. It was hers. The corridor trembled. The other voices quieted. Not because they were gone, because they had heard the rule. Choice first. Kaelan turned to the guards. "Send word above. No one leaves the court. Anyone whose name appears stays under protection. Scribes record each return. No temple hand touches them." Eveline lifted her burned palms. "The veil houses will run if they hear this." Kaelan looked at her. "Then name their exits." She swallowed. Then she did. East Bridal Gate. Lower Treasury Tunnel. Old Moon Garden. "My father will send riders from the West Arch." Kaelan ordered guards without hesitation. Seren looked at Eveline. The former false bride did not meet her eyes. "I wore your bond," she whispered. "I cannot undo that." "No," Seren said. Eveline flinched. Seren's voice softened. But you can stop hiding what else you know. Eveline nodded. Then the corridor shook violently. At the far end, a sealed black door opened by itself. Marrow went still. Althea gripped Seren's arm. No. Kaelan lifted his sword. What is behind that door? Marrow's face had gone empty. The first witness singer, she said. The voices in the corridor vanished into silence. Even the moon seemed to dim. Seren felt the scar on her throat turn cold. Althea whispered, "They told us she died." Marrow looked at her with hollow satisfaction. No. Death would have freed her. The black door opened wider. Inside was a round chamber filled with water so still it reflected no one. At the center, chained beneath the surface, floated a woman wrapped in silver thread from throat to ankle. Her eyes were open. Her mouth was sealed with moonstone. Her hair spread through the water like white fire. Kaelan's wolf shadow lowered its head. Not in fear. In mourning, Marrow said quietly. The temple did not build the execution stones from law. It built them from her voice. Seren stepped into the chamber. The water did not ripple. The woman beneath it looked at her. Then every sealed scar in the corridor lit at once. Althea began to cry. Mother. Seren froze. The first witness singer was her grandmother, the root of her bloodline, the living voice beneath every execution stone in Verhold. Kaelan looked from Althea to Seren, then to the woman under the water. How do we free her? Marrow answered before anyone else. You do not. If she rises, every execution ever sealed by temple song opens again. Every wrongful death, every stolen bond, every buried heir, every royal lie. Seren looked at the woman beneath the water. Her grandmother's sealed mouth moved behind moonstone. No sound came out, but Seren heard her anyway. Not in her ears. In her blood. Do not break the kingdom for me. Seren's throat tightened. Kaelan heard nothing, but he read her face. What did she say? Seren closed her eyes. For 9 years, silence had been her cage. Now truth asked her not to become careless with voice. She said not to break the kingdom for her. Marrow smiled. Wise woman. Seren opened her eyes. But the kingdom broke her first. The moon chamber blazed. Kaelan stepped beside her, crownless in everything but duty. Then we do not break the kingdom. He looked toward the endless corridor of sealed throats. We make it answer. Seren placed one hand over the water. Grandmother, she whispered, voice shaking but alive. Do you choose witness? The woman beneath the water closed her eyes. One tear rose upward through the still surface. Then she nodded. The entire archive began to sing. Not one voice. All of them. Every sealed throat in the moon-glass corridor opened in silver light. Every stolen song rose from the walls. Every name carved into the old archive table burned awake at once. The sound shook the foundation of the wolf court above, rattling the execution stone, cracking the temple seals, and driving every royal wolf shadow to its knees again. Seren stood at the edge of the still water with her hand outstretched. Beneath the surface, her grandmother opened her eyes. Althea fell to her knees behind her, one hand pressed to her mouth. Mother, the woman in the water could not answer. Not yet. Silver thread wrapped her body from throat to ankle, binding her beneath the surface like a drowned moon. Her mouth remained sealed with moonstone. But now, with the archive singing, the water around her began to glow. Marrow screamed, "Stop this!" Kaelan turned on her. Why? If she rises, every execution stone in the kingdom will open. Seren looked back. Then every execution stone was built wrong. Marrow's eyes were wild now. You do not understand. Some of those stones hold murderers, traitors, blood, mad, wolves. If witness law opens everything at once, guilty and innocent will rise together. That struck the chamber hard. Even Kaelan went still, because this time, Marrow had found a real danger inside the lie. Seren looked at her grandmother beneath the water. The old witness singer's eyes were filled with pain, not command. She was not asking to be worshipped. She was not asking Seren to tear the world apart for her. She was asking to be heard correctly. Seren lowered her hand. The archive song softened. Not ended. Waiting. Kaelan watched her carefully. What do you choose? Marrow laughed bitterly. She cannot choose for a kingdom. No, Seren said. Her voice was still rough, but it held. I choose the first rule. The archive brightened. She turned toward the moon-glass corridor. No stone opens without witness. No voice returns without consent. No prisoner is freed without a name, a record, and those harmed by the judgment allowed to speak. But no sealed throat remains buried because the temple fears what it will say. The chamber went silent. Then the water answered. The first silver thread broke from her grandmother's wrist. Marrow's face collapsed. Kaelan's eyes moved to Seren with something like awe, but he said nothing. Good. She needed witness, not worship. The old woman beneath the water lifted one hand through the surface. This time, the water rippled. Althea crawled forward. Mother. Seren touched her arm. Ask her. Althea understood. Her voice broke. Do you choose to rise? The old witness singer closed her eyes, then nodded. Kaelan stepped back and lowered his sword. Guards. No one touches her unless she reaches first. The command passed through the chamber and up into the court. The remaining silver threads loosened. The moonstone seal over the old woman's mouth cracked. She rose from the water without a splash, wrapped in wet silver hair and broken moonlight. Her feet touched the floor for the first time in decades. She nearly fell. Althea caught her only after the old woman reached for her. Mother and daughter collapsed into each other. Seren looked away because the grief felt too sacred to watch fully. Kaelan did not look away, but his face changed. For a prince raised on courts and commands, perhaps this was the first time he understood what temple law had stolen beyond power. Ordinary touch. Chosen names. Mothers and daughters who should not have had to meet again beneath stone. The old woman lifted her face. When she spoke, her voice was faint, but the archive bowed to it. My name is Seren Noctvale. Every execution stone in Verhold rang once. Not open. Not broken. Named. Seren looked at Seren. You carry the severed song. Seren's throat tightened. I do not know how to use it. That is why you may be trusted with it. Marrow snarled. Do not listen to her. She will make you doubt every law. Seren turned toward Marrow. No, I will make law answer why it needed silence. The archive table flared. A hidden panel opened beneath the royal bond cabinet. Inside lay the original Mooncourt record. The first law of witness singers. Written before the temple altered it. Kaelan lifted it carefully. His face hardened as he read. The witness voice may stand beside crown, but never beneath it. The royal wolf must hear truth before command. No mate bond may be sealed without refusal spoken freely by both souls. The chamber went cold. Seren looked at Kaelan. He looked at her. The unfinished bond between them pulsed. Not demanding. Waiting. Marrow saw it and struck one final time. She threw herself toward the archive table, cutting her chained wrist against a broken glass ring. Blood hit the original law record. Black fire erupted across the page. Seren cried out. The archive screamed. Marrow's voice rose over the chaos. If witness returns, the temple falls. If the temple falls, the northern packs invade by dawn. Your father knew it, Kaelan. He let us seal the singers. He let us move the bonds. Ask the record. Ask who signed the first burial order. Kaelan froze. The black fire spread. A name appeared on the burning record. King Rovan Vaer. Kaelan's father. The court above saw it reflected in the shattered moonglass. A roar of shock rose from the nobles. Kaelan stared at the name as if the dead had struck him. Marrow smiled through blood. There is your truth, Prince. Your bloodline did not inherit a lie. It authorized one. Seren watched him. This was the moment that would decide whether he wanted truth only when it accused others. Kaelan's hand tightened around the record. His wolf shadow trembled behind him. Then he placed the burning page on the archive table for everyone to see. My father's name stands under witness, he said. The black fire faltered. Marrow's smile died. Kaelan looked up toward the court above. His voice carried through the broken stone. No royal name is protected from record. Not my father's. Not mine. The archive blazed silver. Witness accepted. Seren felt the bond between them change. Not complete. deepen, because he had chosen accusation over bloodline. Aravel placed one trembling hand over the burning record. The black fire turned white and died. The second door of the archive opened. Beyond it, a chamber of royal mate bonds waited, hundreds of silver threads stretched between wolf skulls, moon jars, wedding crowns, and execution blades. Evelyn inhaled sharply. That is where they changed the heirs. Kaelan turned toward her. You know this room? She nodded, ashamed. My father brought me here when I was 12. Seren stepped toward the open chamber. Her throat hurt. Her body shook. But her voice was hers. Her name was hers. And somewhere inside that web of stolen bonds lay the full truth of why her song had been buried before the Wolf Prince ever heard it. She looked at Kaelan. This time he did not ask if she was ready. He asked the better question. Do you choose to continue? Seren looked at her mother, her grandmother, Evelyn, the sealed voices, the opened record bearing a king's guilt, and the prince whose wolf would die if truth stopped here. Yes, she said. Together they entered the chamber of stolen bonds. The chamber of stolen bonds opened like a wound no crown had wanted healed. Silver threads stretched from wall to wall, hundreds of them, glowing faintly in the dark. Some ran between wolf skulls and wedding crowns. Some were knotted around moon jars. Some were tied to execution blades still stained with old silver blood. Each thread pulsed with a life that had been moved, broken, sold, or silenced. Kaelan stopped at the threshold. His wolf shadow stood behind him, wounded but alert, black thread still clinging to its ribs. The chamber knew him. Seren could feel it. Every stolen bond in the room turned toward the prince like grass bending before a storm. Evelyn pressed a hand over her mouth. I remember this place. Seren looked at her. Then name what happened here. Evelyn's eyes filled, but she did not look away. My father brought me here before my 13th moon. Marrow said the prince's true bond had formed toward a forbidden witness line. She said if the bond completed, Kaelan's wolf would stop obeying the crown. So they cut the first note, sealed Seren's voice, and placed part of the bond on me. Kaelan's jaw tightened. And the rest? Evelyn looked toward the far wall. At the center of the chamber stood a black moon crown suspended above a stone basin. Inside the basin lay a silver thread cut into 3 pieces. One piece pulsed toward Kaelan, one toward Seren, one toward a covered cradle of wolf bone and silk. Seren's throat went cold. That, Marrow whispered from behind them, is why we sealed her before she could sing. Kaelan turned. What is in the cradle? Marrow smiled without warmth. Your heir. Yuna. The chamber went silent. Seren felt the bond between herself and Kaelan flare in violent warning. Kaelan's wolf shadow snarled so hard the stolen threads trembled. I have no child, he said. No, Marrow replied. You have a possibility. A bloodline echo. The temple used the stolen mate note to prepare an air vessel in case the prince became uncontrollable. Seren took a step toward the covered cradle. Kaelan moved beside her, then stopped. Do not touch it yet. For once, the warning did not feel like command. It felt like fear trying to stand between her and another trap. Seren nodded. Aravel, her grandmother, lifted her trembling hand. Name the vessel first. Marrow's expression changed. Seren saw it. You know the name. Marrow said nothing. Evelyn whispered. I do. All eyes turned to her. Evelyn's voice shook. The vessel was taken from the lower nursery. A child born without pack registration. Marrow said she was empty enough to hold royal future. Seren's stomach twisted. What is her name? Evelyn closed her eyes. Miriel. The cradle screamed. The silk covering flew back. Inside lay not an infant, but a little girl of perhaps 7 years, asleep in a circle of moon thread. Her hair was dark. Her skin was pale. A crescent scar marked her throat, smaller than Seren's, newer. Silver thread ran from her chest to the black moon crown. Kaelan's face went white. Seren felt rage rise so fast it almost became song. Almost. She held it back. Choice first. She knelt beside the cradle, keeping her hands visible. Miriel. The child's eyelids trembled. Miriel, can you hear me? The girl opened her eyes. They were silver, empty with fear. Am I supposed to wake? She whispered. Seren's heart cracked. Yes, she said. Only if you choose. The child looked past her at Kaelan and flinched. Kaelan stepped back immediately. The chamber saw it. The court above saw it through the moon glass. A wolf prince retreating from a frightened child because his presence scared her. That mattered. Muriel looked at Seren again. Am I his? No, Seren said. Marrow snapped. She was made for the royal line. Seren turned on her. She was born for herself. The stolen bonds blazed. Witness accepted. Kaelan's voice came low and furious. Cut the thread, Aravel warned. Not with a blade. Seren understood. A blade had made this crime. A blade would not undo it cleanly. She leaned closer to Muriel. Do you want the crown thread removed? Muriel's tiny hands clenched in the silk. Will it hurt? Seren did not lie. Maybe. But not alone. The child looked at Kaelan's wolf shadow. Then at Seren's mother and grandmother. Then at Eveline with her burned hands. Finally she nodded. Seren sang one note. Zoft. Careful. A note made not to expose, but to loosen. The silver thread slipped from Muriel's chest and rose into the air. The black moon crown shook violently, trying to pull it back. Kaelan stepped forward and placed his sword through the crown's shadow, pinning it without touching the child. Eveline grabbed the false bond record and read aloud every name tied to Muriel's making. Marrow Vale, Lord Vale, 3 moon judges, 2 royal advisors, and 1 dead king's seal. With each name, the crown cracked. Muriel screamed once. Seren took her hummed. Kaelan's wolf shadow lowered its head and breathed silver light over the child's chest. The thread broke. Muriel collapsed into Seren's arms, alive. The black moon crown split open. Inside was not gold, not stone, but dozens of tiny voice fragments stolen from children who had never been allowed to speak their first wolf song. Seren looked at them, then at Marrow. You made children into tools for a throne. Marrow's eyes burned. I made sure the throne survived. Kaelan's voice cut through the chamber. A throne that survives by eating children deserves no heir. The black moon crown shattered. The entire bond chamber answered. Threads snapped from wedding crowns. Moon jars burst open. Execution blades fell from the walls. Names poured into the air, rushing upward into the court above, across the palace, through every moon glass window in Verhold. The people heard them. The packs heard them. The nobles heard the names of their own houses tied to stolen bonds. Marrow screamed as her own shadow was pinned to the archive wall by witness light. Seren held Muriel close, feeling the little girl shake against her. Kaelan looked at them both, his face carved with grief and fury. The northern packs will come now, Eveline whispered. If the records reach them, they will claim the throne is polluted. Kaelan looked toward the stair. No, Seren said. Everyone turned to her. Her voice was weak but clear. They will not hear it from rumor. They will hear it from us. Marrow laughed from the wall. You would sing this before the packs? Every stolen bond? Every false heir? Every child made into royal insurance? Seren looked at the broken crown, the freed child, the shattered bond threads, and the prince whose throne had just lost the lie protecting it. Yes, Kaelan stepped beside her. Then I stand under the song. The bond between them pulsed, still unfinished, still waiting. Together, they climbed back toward the shattered court, carrying Muriel and the names of every stolen bond. Above them, the moon had turned blood silver, and at the palace gates, the northern packs had already arrived. They came under blood-silver moonlight, not as guests, but as judgment. Their banners filled the outer square. Black wolf, frost wolf, iron moon, red pine, broken crown. Hundreds of warriors stood behind them in fur, leather, and silver armor, their wolf shadows rising huge beneath the shattered sky. At their center sat Alpha Warlord Rovan Blackmere on a white warwolf, his face scarred from old border wars, his eyes fixed on the palace doors as if he had been waiting years for Verhold to bleed in public. The cord above the archive had not recovered. Moonglass still hung broken overhead. The execution stone remained split open. Names of stolen voices and altered bonds burned across the floor. Marrowvale was dragged back in chains, her own shadow pinned by witness light. Evelyn followed with burned palms and a face stripped of pride. Seren carried Miriel in her arms until the child woke enough to cling to Althea instead. Kaelan emerged last from the archive stairs. The court turned toward him, desperate for command. He gave them truth instead. The northern packs are not to be attacked. A commander stared. Your Highness. They came armed. So did our lies. No one answered. Seren stood beside the broken execution stone, her throat aching, her voice fragile, her body shaking from too much song. Every part of her wanted to sit, to breathe, to let someone else hold the next wound open. But outside, hundreds of wolves waited to hear rumor become weapon. If Marrow spoke first, truth would become panic. If the nobles spoke first, witness would become treason. If Kaelan spoke alone, the packs would call it royal defense. Seren had to sing. Kaelan saw the decision in her face before she spoke. No, he said quietly. The court heard the prince refuse her and tensed. Seren looked at him. He corrected himself. Not because I command you, he said. Because your throat is still bleeding. Her hand rose to the crescent scar. Silver blood stained her fingers. Marrow laughed from her chains. How tender. Let her rest then. By dawn the northern wolves will call you corrupted. Her a moon witch, and the child an unlawful air vessel. Rest will be useful while your throne burns. Kaelan turned toward Marrow. Seren touched his arm. He stopped. That too, the court saw. I do not need to sing everything, Seren said. Her voice was rough but steady. Kaelan's eyes searched hers. What do you need? The records. Aravel stepped forward, thin and ancient, still wet with moonlight from the archive water. And witnesses who were harmed. Evelyn lifted her head. I will speak. Murmurs rose. Lord Vale shouted from the gallery. You will be silent. Evelyn flinched. Then she looked down at her burned hands. No, she said. That is how this began. The court went silent. Kaelan pointed to Lord Vale. Bind him under witness. Guards moved immediately. Lord Vale fought, but no wolf shadow stood for him. They took him. The palace doors opened. Cold air swept into the court, carrying the smell of snow, fur, iron, and waiting violence. The northern packs filled the steps below. Rovan Blackmere rode forward until his white warwolf stood at the foot of the palace stairs. Prince Kaelan, he called. We heard the execution stone broke. We heard your promised bride carried a stolen bond. We heard the silent girl sang your wolf to its knees. His eyes moved to Seren. So show us the witch before we decide whether your throne is still clean. Kaelan's wolf shadow rose behind him with a snarl. Seren stepped forward before anger could become war. The northern wolves saw her clearly. Gray servant dress, bare feet, silver blood at her throat, broken chains at her wrists, moonlight still burning in her eyes. Rovan's gaze narrowed. This is the singer? Seren answered before Kaelan could. Yes. Her voice was not loud, but every wolf in the square heard it. A ripple moved through them. Some lowered their ears. Some bared teeth. Some stepped back from the note inside her voice. Rovan studied her. They say you broke the prince's bond. No, Seren said. I found where it was cut. She lifted one hand. The archive records rose behind her in silver light. Kaelan's broken bond. Evelyn's false bracelet. Miriel's air vessel thread. Lord Vale's payment. Marrow's seal. King Rovan first burial order. The northern packs growled as the dead king's name appeared. Rovan Blackmere's face changed. He dismounted slowly. That signature. Kaelan looked at him. You know it. My father carried a copy of a border treaty sealed by that hand. Rovan's voice went colder. He died after saying Verhold had stolen more than land. Marrow smiled faintly. Here it comes. Seren heard the trap, grief turning toward revenge. She stepped to the edge of the stairs. Your father may be in the records. Rovan's eyes cut to her. Maybe? He repeated dangerously. Yes, Seren said. Not named by anger, named by witness. His wolf shadow lunged forward. Kaelan moved instantly, but Seren raised a hand. The wolf stopped inches from the steps, not because she commanded it, because every sealed voice behind her sang one note of warning. Rovan starred. Seren's throat burned. She kept speaking. If you attack now, Marrow wins. Every record burns in war. Every stolen bond becomes rumor. Every dead witness stays useful to whoever shouts loudest. The square went still. Rovan looked at Marrow. For the first time, he seemed to truly see her smiling through chains. His jaw hardened. What do you ask? Seren nearly laughed from exhaustion. A day earlier, no one had asked her anything. 3 witnesses from each northern pack, she said. No weapons beyond the outer court. No arrests without records. No execution before naming. If your dead are in these stones, they will be heard. If your houses paid for silence, they will be named too. Rovan's eyes narrowed. You threaten us while bleeding on palace steps? No, Seren said. I include you. The answer struck harder. Kaelan turned to the gathered court. The royal archive opens under witness. Northern packs, palace servants, harmed families, bond victims, and crown guard will all send names. The temple will not control the records. Rovan looked at him. And your throne? Kaelan removed the silver wolf clasp from his throat and placed it on the broken execution stone. My throne stands accused until the records are read. The court gasped. Rovan stared at him for a long moment. Then the northern warlord stepped off his white wolf and walked up 3 stairs, not to kneel, not to submit, but to stand beneath the same moonlight. I will send witnesses, he said. Marrow's smile vanished. Seren exhaled, but the relief did not last. The execution stone suddenly burned black. Every name on the court floor twisted. Marrow began to laugh. Not with victory, with release. You should have let them kill me, she whispered. The black thread hymn surged from beneath the palace, racing through the stones toward every opened archive door. The temple had prepared one final safeguard. If the witness singers returned, the hymn would kill the voices before they could testify. Seren's throat closed. Iravil fell. Althea screamed without sound. Every sealed voice in the archive began to dim. Kaelan caught Seren as her knees buckled. This time she did not pull away. Marrow smiled up at the blood-silver moon. The song is ending. Seren looked at the northern packs, the court, the broken execution stone, the dying voices, and the prince whose wolf pressed against hers through a bond still waiting to be chosen. Then she understood. One voice could be sealed. Hundreds could not. She forced her bleeding throat open and whispered, "Sing with me." For one breath. No one moved. Then Nira sung. Then Altea. Then Aravel. Then Eveline, voice shaking. Then Rovan Blackmere's white warwolf lifted its head and howled. The northern packs answered. The royal wolves answered. The sealed voices answered. Moonlight exploded over Virehold. And the black thread hymn broke. It did not break quietly. It tore through Virehold like a storm made of voices. Every execution stone in the palace rang at once. Every moonglass window blazed white. Every wolf shadow in the square lifted its head and howled, not for crown, not for temple, not for bloodline, but for the names the old law had tried to bury. Seren collapsed against Kaelan's arm. Her throat burned as if the moon itself had passed through it. This time, when Kaelan held her, she did not pull away, not because she belonged to him, because she had chosen not to fall. The court stood frozen around them. The northern pack stared up from the stairs. Rovan Blackmere's white warwolf still howled beneath the blood-silver moon. Nira, Althea, Aravel, Eveline, and dozens of newly awakened voices filled the square with a broken, uneven song that was not beautiful because it was perfect. It was beautiful because it was free. Marrowvale screamed. The witness light pinned her shadow to the broken execution stone. Black thread poured from her mouth, her sleeves, her moonbone rings, and every hidden seal stitched into her robes. The temple's final safeguard had failed, and now it was turning backward through the hand that had released it. Kaelan's voice cut through the song. Keep her alive. The guards hesitated. Rovan looked at him sharply. After what she did? Kaelan did not look away. Dead, she becomes an ending. Alive, she becomes a record. Seren lifted her head. Her voice was barely a whisper, but the moon carried it. She names every chamber. The square quieted. Seren stood with difficulty. Kaelan released her the moment she found her balance, though his hand hovered close enough to catch her if she chose. She walked to Marrow. each step slow, blood silver at her throat, moonlight in her eyes. Marrow glared up at her. "You think witness will save this kingdom?" "No," Seren said. But silence already ruined it. The execution stone flared. "Accepted." Marrow's face twisted as the witness light wrapped around her wrists. Plain iron chains were brought. Not temple silver. Not sacred bindings. Plain iron. Like any criminal who had used holy language to hide ordinary cruelty. Seren turned to the crowd. "High Priestess Marrowvale lives," she said. "She will name every sealed throat, every stolen bond, every buried singer, every altered prophecy, every execution stone, every noble house that paid for silence, and every royal order that allowed it." The nobles looked sick. "Good." Rovan Blackmere stepped forward. "And the northern dead?" Seren faced him. "They will be heard." "And if Veerhold signed their burial?" Kaelan stepped beside Seren, not in front of her. "Then Veerhold answers." The northern warlord studied him for a long moment. Then his gaze moved to the silver wolf clasp Kaelan had placed on the broken execution stone. "You truly leave your throne accused?" Kaelan's jaw tightened. "Until it has listened." Rovan gave a grim nod. "Then my witnesses enter." By dawn, the royal wolf court had become something it had never been meant to be. A witness hall. The throne remained empty. The execution stone stayed split. The moon archive doors stood open under guard. The northern pack sent 3 witnesses each. Palace servants came forward with records hidden in floorboards, laundry rooms, kitchens, and stable walls. Families of the condemned entered carrying old death tokens. Bond victims sat beside scribes. False brides and stolen heirs waited under protection. Not possession. Evelyn Vale stood before the table with her burned hands uncovered. "My father paid for the false bond," she said, voice shaking but clear. "I wore it after I knew it was stolen. I feared losing rank more than I feared another girl's silence." Lord Vale shouted from his chains. No one listened to him. The witness table burned. "Accepted." Evelyn did not ask forgiveness. That made her testimony stronger. Nira spoke next. Then Althea. Then Aravel. Then Rovan's witness, who named a northern treaty singer executed under false moon law. Each voice opened another record. Each record opened another chamber. Not all were innocent. Not all were simple. Some buried names belonged to people who had done harm. Some belonged to victims who had also become accomplices to survive. Witness did not make the world clean. It made it harder to lie about the dirt. By the second dawn, the first sealed singers were returned by choice. Some voices came back as whispers. Some as cries. Some refused to return at all. And Seren protected that refusal too. "No one is forced to speak," she told the court. "Not even for truth." The moon accepted the law. Kaelan stood beside the empty throne and repeated it before the nobles. "No voice will be cut for silence. No bond will be sealed without refusal freely spoken. No execution stone will pass judgment until witness has been heard. The Moon Temple no longer controls royal bonds." A lord rose in outrage. "Then who does?" Kaelan looked at Seren. The court waited, expecting him to name her. He did not. "No one controls them," he said. That was the crime. Seren looked away before the court could see what those words did to her. The bond between them still burned, unfinished and patient. It had grown stronger after the black thread hymn broke, but it did not drag her. It waited like moonlight at the edge of a door. Later, when the hall finally emptied, Seren returned to the shattered execution stone. Her mother stood nearby with Aravel, both weak but alive. Miriel slept under the protection of 3 witness women, no longer an air vessel, only a child. Evelyn was guarded, but unhurt. Marrow and Lord Vale remained in plain iron, forced to speak names until the last hidden chamber opened. Kaelan approached without crown, without guards, without command. "May I stand here?" he asked. Seren almost smiled. "Almost. Yes." He stood beside her, leaving space between them. Outside, wolves howled across Veerhold. Not in panic now. In answer. The northern packs had not attacked. The royal court had not collapsed. It had cracked, yes. It had bled. It had been accused before its own people. But it still stood. Different. Wounded. Listening. Kaelan looked at the broken stone. They will want me to complete the bond. I know. They will say it stabilizes the throne. I know. They will say your voice proves the moon chose you. Seren touched the scar at her throat. It was no longer sealed, but it would always remain. The moon answered me. That is not the same as owning me. Kaelan's eyes softened, but his voice stayed steady. Then I will not ask for the bond while the court is trying to use it. She looked at him. He held her gaze. And when I do ask, it will not be before nobles, priests, or wolves. It will be before you only. The bond between them warmed. Seren did not accept it. Not yet, but she did not fear it as much. When every sealed singer is named, she said. When every stolen bond is opened. When no child is buried under a stone because truth frightens a crown, then you may ask. Kaelan bowed his head. Then my wolf waits. Behind him, his royal wolf shadow lowered itself to the floor. Not in weakness. In respect. Seren's voice had begun the night as a weapon they thought she did not have. It ended as a law they could no longer silence. The girl brought to court because she could not sing had shattered the execution stone. The silent servant had become Seren Noctvale, witness voice of the old moon. And when she left the wolf court alive, every royal wolf remained kneeling not to claim her, not to crown her, but to hear what truth would sing next.